Hi.
Hello. So welcome
Uh,
to the clinic session. Yeah. Do you have any questions for today?
yes, I have a question with regards to pre-tutorial 2,
Okay.
because I'm
Yes.
confused as to how to proceed along with it. So when
Okay.
I came up with, maybe the first thing I would like to ask is when it comes to question 2, which is the explanation portion on why we come up with the tree diagram, do
Okay.
we have to explain every single outcome?
Mm, would be good if you can. Basically, the idea is like, okay, how do you arrive at your definition of like sci-fi, for example? Like some people will say, oh, sci-fi must have lasers and da 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 da. But how do you know that how do you arrive to at the conclusion that necessarily it must have these things? Yeah.
As in, I'm more curious as to, because if we do the nesting condition, so for
Yeah.
example, if I put magic, then if there's magic, then maybe there's a quest involved. And if maybe there's a quest
Okay.
involved or there's a flying creature, then it's considered fantasy. So in that
Okay.
case, if I were to explain why is it fantasy, do I have to explain why is it magic, why is quest involved, and why is there flying creatures?
That's
Is
one
that
one
how
way
is
to
it
go
supposed
about
to
it.
be?
That's one way you can approach the question lah. I don't want to say you have to do it because this kind of essays this kind of discussion is very open ended. So if I say like that, then everybody of feel they have to do, and some that do already, then they panic and they say, oh, I do wrongly. Actually, no lah. There's 101 different ways to approach this. You like, for example, I know some people that tree diagram is a bit complicated. So like maybe they will branch this way, then fantasy, then maybe branch some other way, also fantasy, right? So
Yes.
so so then that's the recognition that there are some contingent means not necessary conditions. So like there are some kinds of fantasy that's like that, and then there are some kinds of fantasy that's like that. So I acknowledge that not all fantasy is can be defined in this way. Then that's okay. So yeah.
But I think that's why it's confusing, because the idea of justifying why certain criteria is considered necessary. So, for example, I put magic as my first choice. Then yes, there's magic. I will classify that under fantasy really, because magic differs from sci-fi, because sci-fi is usually more of advanced technology, but
Mm.
magic is something that's more supernatural powers in that sense.
Okay.
So,
So that's
but
that's
then
good. That's
yeah,
good. That's I mean that's not a bad start. So you can go in that direction. So yeah, like what separates sci-fi from fantasy is the fact that fantasy has magic, sci-fi does not have magic. So that's, yeah, you can approach it like
okay.
this.
Then here comes the issue, because now I have to separate between fantasy as well as horror. So of
Okay.
course, when we look at the idea of magic, fantasy is quite clear cut. There's magical creatures, there's
Mm-hmm.
uh, mythical worlds. But when it comes to horror, some people say that horror is technically magical because everything is still considered supernatural. But I would see horror as, or rather, I would see magic as not being explicitly shown in horror films. So can that
Okay.
be the thing that separates them, or
Can you okay? So you notice everything that's ambiguous, I leave it to you to go and define. So you're right to say that, okay, you can scope it down. That's something that you can do. Yeah. So you can say, yeah, horror might look like there's magical elements, but it's I mean there's a distinction lah. For example, like some horror is like demonic curse and stuff like that. That's not really magic, right? Supernatural is not the same as magic, right? Magic is, whatever you want to define. If you're thinking Lord of the Rings, then they must like say an incantation or whatever. But supernatural is just, you just have a bunch of creatures that exist, right? Like ghosts just exist. There's no magic involved unless you summon a ghost or something lah. But I think that one people will tend to associate more with fantasy.
then does it make sense if I were to distinct them by saying that okay, magic has supernatural powers, but then for horror, it is more of supernatural phenomenon instead.
That would be an interesting way of distinguishing it. Yeah, sure. You can go in this direction. So you define very clearly, by magic I mean this. Yeah. So by magic I mean this, and well, horror, uh, that looks like it has these elements, but actually no. Going by my definition, it does not. So therefore it doesn't count. Yeah.
Okay, and then here's the confusing part because when I go under the criteria where there is no magic, somehow or another I'll end up with a fantasy criteria there as well. Like my outcome, one of my outcome will still be fantasy.
In what do you mean? In the sense that you draw your tree diagram and one of them is, you still end up putting fantasy.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Then it becomes contradictory because at the start, my first criteria is there magic, and I consider magic as a necessary and sufficient component. But
Mm.
here along, when I come out with the else condition, there is also another fantasy requirement after going through a few criterias.
Mm.
So
Yes.
in that case, then wouldn't it be
That
contradictory?
that would be a contradictory, but I understand because this is a question requirement that you still have to slot everybody into one of the three
Yeah.
genres, right? So this is your closest possible match, right?
Yes. Like
Yeah.
according
So
to the data set that's provided as well.
so you can you just scope it, so you just scope it very clearly that even though you don't really consider it as fantasy, you can say, okay, uh, given how we are limited to only three genres and there's no NA or whatever, right? So I'm willing to concede that there are some stuff that cannot be fitted, and the next best match is already a fantasy lah.
Can. But there will be more of question 5, right? Where we have to justify why certain things will fall under or will
Yeah,
mismatch
so
in that
so
sense.
so 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 I think the fun is after you define already, then you type your formula, then you expand, then you'll be surprised by that some movies get miscategorized. Usually, it's like Pokemon and Totoro that gets misclassified. So then the thing is, how do you make a case for it, this model is good. I mean, if you want to tweak your model after that, you can still go ahead and tweak it lah. But the main thing about question 5 for pre-tutorial 2 is, okay, there are some inaccuracies, but why is this still, why should we still go ahead with it? Because I mean, okay, for pre-tutorial 2 is still okay, right? Because you're just dealing with like film classification. But
Yeah.
imagine if this was a classification model for government welfare, or who gets retrenched, or who gets government aid or scholarship, then it becomes very disturbing already, right? That you have inaccuracies that exist and people don't get what they want, right? They
Yes.
get wrongly classified. It's just like, okay, one of the TAs brought it up in this morning's class. Like, the recent case, there was some NUS student, the guy, the dental student, the one crawled into his girlfriend's house and assaulted her. Then
Yeah.
the judge said that given his grades is very good, so he's actually, so what happens is, what, there's a legal framework, and the legal framework actually has a classification model. So somewhere along the tree diagram, got good grades, NUS student got good grades, then is go lenient, right? The outcome is go lenient. And of course, so things like this do happen in the real world. Yeah. So this is a little bit more lighthearted in the sense that we're just doing films lah. But how, knowing that we can make mistakes in the real world with all these classification models, like, so how do you make a case that what you have is that we should still go forward with this? Mm, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other question that I also have is how, in that case, then how general or how specific are you meant to go ahead for? So like going back to the example of if I say there's magic, my first criteria, I can straight classify them as fantasy. But if I would look at other conditions and I go down along the way, like for example, magic and flying creatures, it will still be fantasy. So in that case,
Okay.
I don't need the additional condition, or will you advise us to put it in still? Because when you're looking at the broader spectrum of movies that are beyond the data set provided, will it be better to have more conditions or will it be better to have less?
This one is an art. It's more art than science. So I a bit hard for me to say. It's one of those things where, as you are discovering right now, we don't know what future cases might happen. Right. That's the problem with algorithms. That's the social problem with algorithms. So what's the limitation? At best, we can only code what we know. Right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
and yeah, so you just do your best, and if you can identify interesting movie cases that might screw up your classification model, that might also be interesting, worth talking about. Yeah. Or if you can find a difficult one, like some of these Hollywood films or what directors are always okay like artists in general, they're always trying to push the boundary definitions of things, right? Like, oh, it's sci-fi. How far can I push sci-fi such that it fails all definitions of sci-fi, but we still are happy to keep it as sci-fi. People like to do this kind of thing. Artists like to do that also. Like what counts as art? Then you have some joker that pastes a banana on the wall, and then that somehow gets considered art, and that forces us to rethink what we mean by art. Yeah.
But I think
So
that being said, that's why the genres are interlinked in some sense. Like
in some sense they are interlinked.
I cannot say that this movie will only be in that genre.
Correct. So, but I'm forcing the only one genre because then it really makes you think if you have to pick one. Because interestingly, in the real world, if you just talk about sci-fi and fantasy, there's people who will take offense if you even though like it might overlap, there are people out there who will take offense if you say a certain fantasy film has sci-fi elements. It's almost like a cult religion to them. So there are people who take this kind of sides, and it's very interesting to I like this exercise because it probes how you yourself think about the definitions of things. So even though we're just dealing with movies, all right, this has implications for the definition of other things, like who's eligible, what counts as eligibility, or even you talk about friendship. What makes a friend a good friend versus an acquaintance or an okay friend, or some people use BFF. So if you had to do a tree diagram, right? The problem with us is that we fudge all these things in our heads. We just have an idea, okay, friend, good friend, best friend, then they overlap. But when we're challenged to really draw the lines of distinction, that's where we fumble. So this is a good exercise to help you gain that clarity. Yeah.
Okay, then in that case, because of the various interpretations that we might have, can we just focus more on the sufficiency of our tools
You
rather
can
than
just
the
use the
necessity?
you can just focus on that if you want to lah. Yeah. Like
Okay.
I said, the discussion is very open, so you scope it the way you want it to go lah.
I just wanted to clarify again, like for pre-tutorial 2, or rather
Yeah.
just in general the concepts of necessary and sufficient. Before we even talk about the idea of sufficient, usually you must classify or you must explain why is it considered necessary first, right?
Correct. So like say chicken, the chicken rice example. Chicken is necessary for Hainanese chicken rice, right? Rice is necessary for Hainanese chicken rice. But then you ask, okay, wait, take a step back. You just talk about chicken. Is chicken necessary? Yes. Is it sufficient? No, because KFC also has chicken, but it's not Hainanese chicken rice, right? Then we say, okay, so not enough, right? So we add one more condition. Chicken and rice, both are necessary, right? But then it doesn't distinguish Hainanese chicken rice from other chicken and rice dishes. Like you can go Western food store and order chicken chop rice, chicken chop fried rice. That is not Hainanese chicken rice. You also have biryani chicken rice, also not Hainanese chicken rice, right? So what does this tell you? It tells you that the conditions are necessary but not sufficient enough, so we need to add more. So then we say, okay, what else do we need? It requires ginger. Okay, so we add ginger into the equation. So chicken, rice, and ginger.
Okay,
Have
but
we reached the
for
state of sufficiency? Yeah.
for the examples that have been provided, for example, Hainanese chicken rice, these are all specific examples. But
Yeah.
more often than not, when we do classifications, they are understanding more general terms. So, for example, if I were to say, now instead of Hainanese chicken rice, I'm talking about just chicken rice in general.
Okay,
So,
chicken rice in
chicken
general.
cutlet can be one of it. It can be sufficient to be called chicken rice. Hainanese chicken rice can also be sufficient to call chicken rice, but not.
Yes.
But either one of them may not necessarily be part of it in that sense.
What do
Okay,
you mean?
I mean,
So
like if I say that Hainanese chicken is necessary to be called chicken rice, like just in general chicken rice, then how about chicken cutlet?
chicken cutlet, does it have rice? So then you can imagine you have a tree diagram. So does the chicken cutlet have rice? Then no, then it's not a chicken rice dish. If it has rice, yes, then we can classify it as a chicken rice dish.
Um, how do I put it into terms? Maybe just talking about the pre-tutorial might be easier.
Okay,
So,
sure.
so like earlier mentioned, fantasy is usually within magic. within magic.
Yeah,
Where there's
okay.
magic usually is fantasy. However, there are times where there is no magic and it still can be considered fantasy.
That's true.
So
Okay.
we cannot say that magic is necessary because there are times
Ah,
where both sides do
so
not have.
then we can say it's contingent and sufficient. Contingent just means not necessary lah. So if you want to simplify, then you just say it's not necessary but sufficient. So you can say magic plus something, then this set is contingent and sufficient, or not necessary and sufficient. And then we have another set which is like not magic plus some other thing plus some other thing. Then this is the other contingent set.
But because there are a lot of criteria, and each criteria will have an outcome where you will either need to list one of the three genres. So in
Okay.
that case, in that case, it is a bit confusing for me because when you say that something's necessary means it couldn't appear in other nesting conditions. So
Yeah, so
like,
when you correct. So if you say it's not necessary, okay, like if the outcome appears in two different branches, then we're not saying that it's necessary anymore. We're not saying from this circle to this circle is necessary. Then we're saying this whole chain that is contingent and sufficient.
oh, then
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that's the case, then I don't have anything that's necessary because I will definitely have more than one where fantasy or sci-fi
Okay.
or horror has appeared. Yeah.
Okay, then that's okay, because some people they define it very, they have very strong definition. So they say wow, must have this, necessarily have laser, so it's sci-fi. Yeah. So that tree diagram might go something like that. Laser, yes. Sci-fi, no. Then they branch elsewhere already.
But in their
Yeah.
branching elsewhere, somewhere also have sci-fi. Then if that's the case, you cannot say that
Okay,
laser
yeah.
is
If they're branching somewhere else
unnecessary.
have, then that's not necessary anymore. But some
Oh,
people actually draw the tree diagram where it is necessary, because sci-fi only appear one time.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So it's really up to you. And this one I just leave it up to you how you want to define lah. So, yeah, just I guess the fun is try to see if you can get high accuracy lor. Yeah.
Okay.
But one thing I want to say is, uh, it doesn't, having more conditions or having less conditions doesn't mean it's better. Yeah, having more, having less doesn't mean it's better. Yeah, in because yeah, it's as a general rule lah. Because I afraid some students think that they want to score more marks, then they must do until super complicated. Not true, not true. Yeah. Anyway, the if you want, I can, let me just go a bit out of the syllabus. AI, one kind of AI actually does this, where they draw the tree, where the machine draws the tree diagram automatically for you. And what's interesting about it is that it will draw the tree diagram, but the tree diagram is super specific to the data set that you feed it. Then the task of the human operator is to go in and what they call pruning. So you need to cut branches away so that it becomes general enough for other data sets. That means if let's say we run this on AI, AI will draw a super complicated tree diagram, but then it will only work for this particular data set of this set of movies. So imagine if I give you a different set of movies, then the AI generated tree diagram will fail. So the task of the human being is to come in and decide which branches to cut away.
But of course, there's always the risk of when you cut it away because it's more general, therefore some data sets won't fit inside.
Correct. Then you get inaccuracies lah. There's a very fun AI challenge. It's quite a popular one. So what they do is they will give you half of the Titanic data set. The Titanic data set tell you male, female, the age, whether they're first class, second class, third class passenger on the ship, and then they tell you whether they survive or they died in the Titanic. Then you train your AI. Basically, the task is how do you prune your tree diagram after the AI generated it, so that your AI can accurately predict who the remainder of the list, who survived, who died. Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that they have for this kind of data analytics competitions lah. Yeah, some of them got cash prizes also. Yeah. So yeah lah. I mean, in a certain way, you are doing the tree diagram manually lor. But it's good exercise. It's good exercise because now you start to think in terms of tree diagram. like when you want to make decisions, you start to think about all these things also. Like now you start to realize, actually maybe this circle is not necessary. It's useful for decision making lah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then just to clarify for the tutorial 2, it's we just come up with our own
Pre-tutorial 2, yeah, you just come up with your own tree diagram.
okay, then we just explain why we chose this to fit this category, so on.
Sorry again. So basically, you start first with one of the things you can do is you start first with a definition, like sci-fi must have this and this and this. Okay, let's say then maybe fantasy must have this and this and this, and then maybe horror must have this and this and this. Okay, now that you have that, let's make a tree diagram out of it. Then you can after that, then you can ask yourself, then you can implement on Excel and you see what is the outcome. Okay, then you maybe what some students will do is that they see the outcome and then they're like, there's a lot of movies wrongly classified. You cannot classify 100%. So don't expect that. But then you can say, okay, 100. Is there anything I can do? Can I change it in any way to make it better? Like some people, they realize that the order in which you nest actually affects things, affects the results. Like this, like earlier on, one student asked me, she was like, I want like magic is necessary. Wait, let me bring up the question. I don't remember the question. Like she say, machines and lasers and machines is like the point she wants to make is that it's lasers and machines are not necessary to fantasy, right? But depending on how you nest it, you might have an outcome where you say that fantasy is defined as necessarily not machine, not magic. Yeah, so that actually affects the definition and the outcome of it in the sense that because you put laser and because if you say that it's not necessary for fantasy to have all these things, right, then you might want to you might not want to start doing the split for lasers and machines so early on, because that changes. So basically, okay, the point I'm trying to say is how we order the if, how we nest the if can change the result. So sometimes you don't like the result, then you can ask yourself, would it be better if I shift the order around? If I shift some of the orders around, then maybe we might get something else. Yeah.
You don't have to so we just explain on why which order we put the ifs.
Correct. Explain. Okay. Sometimes there are some things you might have difficulty explaining everything. So don't stress too much over how you want to explain. Just have a just do your best. Try to have fun with it, and then be clear with the definitions. So some things are ambiguous. Yeah. So then you decide for yourself. Like just now, Clement earlier on, he said, but some people say horror also got magic, but then it's not magic in the same way as magic in fantasy. Okay, very good. Then you define very clearly. By magic, I mean this. Because actually, he was saying no. Horror has, by his definition, horror has magical elements in the sense that you have like supernatural creatures, but that's not the same as the magic in fantasy, right? Magic in fantasy is, some guy must open the mouth like Harry Potter, Expelliarmus or whatever, right? You don't have like horror the monster or the ghost making spells like that, right? So it's not magic in the same sense. So you be very clear, by magic I mean this. By ghost I mean this or whatever lah. Yeah. Where it's ambiguous lor.
Yeah. I just want to ask a very fast question. Regards
sure.
the the one that you draw. I'm not sure it's the
tree
the one. The tree diagram. So I just want, because I realized that let's say we start from a singular point right at the start, then it's a yes no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once let's say you say yes to the other, let's say one is yes, then can you cross it to the other no? So 1 second, I show you like what I mean.
Okay.
Wait, can you see?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, like this kind, Like see this is like yes, right? Then can you
Yeah.
go down to no?
Okay, okay. Just
Yeah.
don't join the thing lah. You just draw as a separate branch. So, just now your no was what? Magic is it? Then you
Yeah, something like this.
so then okay. So ghost yes, magic yes, fantasy magic no. Then you draw one more. Then use one more circle lasers. So if you merge like this, okay. I know when you merge like this, it's easier. You draw less, but later
Yeah.
on when you try to do the pseudo code, you will confuse yourself lah, or the Excel formula you might confuse yourself. So better to just draw the branches. Yes no yes no yes no like that.
Okay, so
But yeah,
so
you can ask the question again. Yeah.
so let's say in this case I will have to draw a separate like over here like this. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Instead of this.
Yeah, correct. So you draw a separate one.
But it still can be later, is it?
Yeah, it still can be
It can
laser.
appear twice.
Yeah, can appear 3 times, 4 times also can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But because if you draw like this, it will be confusing, right? When you type out in the pseudo code.
Correct.
Okay.
Because the idea of having the tree, right? Then you can see, yes, this is the what to do under the if then, right? Then the no is what to put under the else. Yeah. So if you merge like that, you might get confused late after a while because like you're like, then what do I put under the else? How do I nest the thing after that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Can.
Hi, yeah, because I wanted to ask because based on the tally board, like the storyboard for the pre-tutorial, right?
Yeah.
After that, there was one part which said like, it's better to use like the necessary and like sufficient conditions to like categorize like the movies. So then
Okay.
like when I tried like doing that using like the tree diagram, right, I keep getting like some parts like can only be like others. So I'm not very sure how to resolve that.
Oh, okay. This so what I tell students is okay, because my requirement is you cannot put others or NA. You just give it the closest match. So I know it does. Then even though like sci-fi and fantasy and horror that means it will appear multiple times in your tree diagram. So in a certain sense, it's not exactly necessary or sufficient, but you can make a case that this is the closest lah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can say maybe what you can do is you can say like, okay, this chain is necessary and sufficient, but I acknowledge that that given the limitation of 3 genres only, so this one here, okay lah, it'll be something else. This one will be some other
So
genre.
is it like you have to like sort of change your definition of the genre to like fit the tree diagram?
In a certain way, like you're making a concession, like okay, I have all because the question requires me to assign one genre. So yeah, what can I do? Now, this one is okay. The reason why I say this is because some students, their tree diagram, they're very strict. So they say, okay, laser necessary sci-fi, full stop, that's it, end of story. They don't think any further, So, but some students they want to define a bit more loosely. So they say like fantasy must have like set A must have these conditions, then it's sufficient for fantasy. Then you have another set B of conditions. This one also counts as fantasy. So you have maybe 2 sets or some of them 3 sets. So 2 sets. So this one is not necessary but sufficient, or what you call contingent and sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you don't go down that route, you can just make the concession and say, okay, I need to assign a genre anyway, and based on this definition so far, like maybe horror fantasy is the closest match, something like that. Yeah, you can go in that direction.
So I can talk about it as like a problem later, is it?
You can talk about it as a problem. Yeah. In fact, problem there's a lot of things to talk about in the sense that you can look at what you call sorry, my brain hang. um, problem, you can talk about it in the sense of like you, let's say you were very sure about your definition, your definition of a genre must be like that, right? Then you do the Excel, then suddenly you realize that you have some movies that surprisingly got classified some other way. That is something interesting, isn't it? Then so if you can do anything about it, then you can do something about it. If not, talk about why you can't do something about it. Like sometimes you can improve like sometimes you might be right with the choices of the criteria, but sometimes the order, how you nest it, the outcome very different. Yeah. So sometimes you like let's say you check for laser at the start and then you check for magic at the end, but if you swap it around, the results will be very different also. Then you can explore also like, why is that the case, and is it better to have like laser at the start or machine at the start or whatever, like, magic at the start. So why is that the case? Yeah, it's a very free discussion.
Okay. Then like because for the Excel, like the like keying in like the or and and is allowed, right? So like in the tree diagram, do I have to draw out like the or and the and, or like can I just like put it in one?
So one circle, magic equal magic or lasers or something like that. Magic and laser or something, yeah, you can just put it in one circle.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Actually, I want to ask like a question also.
Yes.
I just thought of one. Is that actually, like for the tree diagram, right? I feel like let's say you're not doing the N and all, right? You're just doing like a linear one. Yeah. Like usually the one at the front at the start is more of like necessary, right?
Yeah, the one at the start is necessary. Yeah.
The one towards the end is more of like sufficient conditions rather than, they may not be necessary, but they are more of like sufficient.
It's more like, think of the whole thing as a chain. So once I have completed this chain, then the whole thing together is sufficient. So the idea is like this. I go back to the Hainanese chicken rice. So chicken is necessary, correct? But is defining Hainanese chicken rice in terms of chicken sufficient? No, right? We need to add more conditions. So chicken, rice. Okay, so now I got two conditions. Is this, both are necessary, correct? Is it sufficient? No. Why no? Because unfortunately we have chicken cutlet rice, chicken biryani rice, correct? So it doesn't distinguish. So it means that these two conditions are necessary, not sufficient yet. We need to add more. Maybe garlic, ginger, or whatever. Then once you have the complete chain, then this whole set is necessary and sufficient. Or let's say you go this way and then you end up with like sci-fi. Then you go this way in your tree diagram, also sci-fi. Then what are we saying? Like this is contingent and sufficient. This is also contingent and sufficient. Contingent means not necessary lah. Not necessary and sufficient. Not necessary and sufficient. So set 1, set 2.
Okay, I see. Okay, I think I get what you mean.
Yeah. Because okay, so depends on how you want to do it. Because some people that tree diagram they go very simple. So just boom, necessary, boom, necessary. That's it. Yeah. It's a bit difficult to try to cover all cases as with this classification.
Yeah, I think it's really complicated also.
Yeah. Maybe just be careful lah. Don't go too complicated doesn't always mean it's good. Yeah. But too simple also doesn't mean it's good. So it's really an art. It's really an art. Like in the world of data science, okay, I'm repeating a point, but I guess you weren't there just now, so I can repeat it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So the thing is, in the world of data analysis, AI, some AI can help to automatically draw tree diagram for you. Yeah, which is quite fun. But the thing is this, the tree diagram that the AI draws will be only specific to the data that you feed it. That means I cannot, outside of that data, let's say I want to use it for other purposes, it becomes very useless. So So then what happens is then the data analysts, okay, have to go in and what they call prune the tree. So
Prune
they have to
tree.
prune the
What's
tree.
prune the tree?
So you know your tree diagram, if you do until very complicated, right? Then you have to go in and you cut off some of the if. Yeah, then you cut. Because once you cut off, then it becomes a bit more general. So that's what they do in the world of AI and data science, you know, then they prune the tree. So that then it becomes a bit more general, then they can use for other purposes. But it really is an art, because how the hell do you decide which
Why can't you use the computer to prune itself?
Because the computer doesn't know. The computer only knows what you feed it.
You can always feed in more data, right?
But you see,
To
more
further prune it.
data is data about the past. More data is not data about the future. You get where I'm going?
But
Data
then,
is
but no matter what data you put, is like the computer will treat it as data. I am assuming this. So that is from the past or future. It will just be data, right, to the
it's
computer.
data, but you see, it's data that you have. Okay, I give you an example. Like in America, right?
Yeah.
In America, you have the case where women only started working in, I don't know, 70s or 80s or something like that, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever lah. But America, like the big companies, right? They will have employee records that go all the way back to like the early 1900s, correct? Now, what's the problem with that? Majority are male, and then so what happens with the AI? So the AI look at the data and then it draw the tree diagram. So necessarily a good so this is how it filter the job applicants. Necessarily male, then not male, reject. And this actually happened with Amazon. The AI rejected a lot of female applicants. Most of the female applicants got rejected because it's using past data.
Past data.
Yeah. So past data about the past works well if things are going to continue to be the same. But if things but then the thing is that sometimes future cases can be very different from the data we collect, or in some cases the data we collect might not be representative.
But then why can't we just design an algorithm that filters out the relevant data for the computer?
Because the algorithm, because that one will depend on the human. So what the human knows is basically what you're doing now. What you think sci-fi means is that's you coding it into the system. The AI is very dumb, so it's still dependent on the human being. So if you have a very like, if you think sci-fi is like that, then the computer will go in that direction. If you think people are like that, then the computer will go in that direction. So the whole point of teaching all this qualitative stuff in this course is to make you aware that you cannot just rely entirely on the algorithm, that the human is needed. I'm training you also to think critically about all these things, that if these kind of problems are going to happen in the future, you know where to look for. Because right now in the tech world, they wait for problem to happen. Then after people suffer very badly, then they try to do something about it.
I guess they earn more profits this way too.
I guess lah. After tutorial 3, I will release a video that the tutorial 3 video follow-up, which is quite interesting because there are examples of algorithms that really mess with people's lives. Yeah. And it's very, very badly designed. And you'll be very surprised. Like you think like, oh, people should be clever enough. Actually, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I wanted to ask just now, I was still doing the tree diagram, right? Then after that there was one like root that is like all no. So like you can't really say like there's a condition because it's like all no.
Okay. That yours is everything is no. Okay. So what would you class of what genre would you put if you had no choice but to fit it into one genre, if everything is no?
But then it's like, I don't know, like because like my initial like definitions were all like not fulfilled. So like that's why I'm a bit confused.
Can I
because
see
there's
your
no because I wrote it down. But basically it's like magic is no, then ghosts or ugly creatures is no, then machines is no, then lasers is also no. But there's still like other stuff in the columns that I can use lah. But
but
eventually
of course
there'll still be a
you get
no.
more,
Yeah, that's
no,
why.
no.
Yeah.
Correct. So okay, you can take one approach you can go is by process of elimination. If you have a film that is no, then doesn't have all these things, then what should it be? Without adding more criteria to complicate your matters lah. So, what was it again? No magic.
Yeah. Then no ghosts or ugly creatures.
No ghosts.
Then yeah. Then no
creatures.
machines and no lasers.
A show that has no magic, no ghosts, no machines, no lasers. Oh, that is a tough one lah. that sounds like
Because
a normal...
it's like all three are like sort of eliminated in that sense.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Can you give me a while? It's raining heavily. I need to go and close my window.
Oh yeah, no problem.
sorry.
Because like let's say like if I really do all the columns right, then like from the data set, like I can observe that there are no films that which say like no for all, right? But then like because the tree diagram is just like a general thing, right? So like you can't say like based on the data set, since like there are no films there, then you just like end it there, right?
Yeah, cause okay, to be fair, my question requirement I also didn't want I didn't I say you cannot put an NA. Yeah, that it does. Okay, I admit it does make it a bit more difficult, but because it's to get students to think about the thing. Okay. Then do you think, would you prefer to reduce the conditions? One way to go about it is to reduce the conditions.
Oh, so it makes it more likely for like this other thing to be
So
like
don't. So let's say no magic, no ghosts, or no ugly creature. So you leave a branch open where you can conclude with something.
Oh,
So
okay. I see what you mean.
So that is one thing you can do. But you want to go find grain somewhere else, you can split somewhere else also can. But at least you shrink it so that you can conclude with something. Because you are right lah. Don't have all these things, then there is nothing already.
Yeah, but then like let's say if I make it like smaller, right? Then like in my definition, like later when I do question 2, then it says like give the thought process and all that. So I was thinking like during the thought process, like first I'll put down like the definitions for each genre. So like let's say if I get rid of the machines and lasers part, so like it will be under no, it will be like sci-fi.
No magic, no ghosts, no ugly creatures, therefore sci-fi.
Yeah. So then like how will the definition go? Because like there's not really like a condition. It's more of like if like how to say like
well in a sense you're saying one way you can go about with this is then you're saying I'm defining sci-fi as anything that has that necessarily has no magic and no ghosts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, necessarily no magic, necessarily no ghosts, which I think that's also not bad because yeah, that could be one way I suppose. Yeah.
So it's sort of like negative justification, is it?
Yeah, negative. So I'm going I'm defining it in the negative route lah. Because one thing you can do is like, because some of these genres are so wide it's very hard to, it could be very difficult to define positively. So you could do something like this lah. Yeah, by negatively, we eliminate, we filter, then everything that doesn't have these things, probably sci-fi or whatever you want to call it. Usually, for some reason, most students they no that everything is horror. then the outcomes are hilarious because like Pokemon, Totoro all become horror movies.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because all the creatures are under Pokemon.
Yeah lor. So then the question is it really good to put to dump horror as everything as no? Wouldn't it be better if some other genre is no? Yeah. Anyway, so I just leave it open lah. Yeah.
Then there was like one question, like I think question 5, like the last part which says like regardless of these problematic films, like make a case why you should go ahead with your classification model. So like yeah, but then like I'm like very confused because it feels like this model is not very good. So like I'm not very sure how to go about answering this last part.
Then okay, maybe for starters, you find out how's the results of this classification model. Then you see whether you can improve any further. If cannot, then you just say, so this is okay. This is I'm just going to use this. But try. How do you make a case? Let's say you made an improvement, okay? Then you compare, you compare and you say that this is better than this. This is one way of doing it. You can compare and say this one produces a better outcome, or you can say that or you can come up with okay, yeah, so comparison is one method. Another one will be where you can talk about you can look at the shows, the ones that are filtered out, that are wrongly classified. Now, are these special cases? You know, like some Hollywood movies, they are trying to push the boundary definitions of certain genres, right? So can you make a case that maybe these are special cases where it's not typical of those movies? So that could be another case. As long as you don't just assert and say, oh, this is the best without actually saying why it's the best. So make a case for why we should go ahead. Like you say, I can't think of other strategies, but something of that sort. Just try just try your best. The whole idea of the pre-tutorial is just try and see what happens.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all from me. Yeah.
Okay, can lah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So all the best. See you.